without further ado, I'm ready to introduce our three panelists today. Welcome, panelists. If you'd like to turn on your cameras and give everyone a wave. I'm going to come to Mohammed first. Mohammed Ahmed is the Director of Partnerships at the Resourcing Refugee Leadership Initiative, a global coalition of 6 organizations driven by the importance of transferring power and resources to refugee-led organizations. He was also one of the guest editors of Hope Across Borders. Welcome, Mohammed. Would you like to share a few words about yourself and the work you do?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm honored to be here. I'm Mohammed Ahmed. I'm the Director of Partnerships at the Resourcing Refugee Leadership Initiative, which, as Elaine said, it's a global coalition led by 6 refugee-led organizations working in 6 countries. Our work focuses on supporting a shift towards a more inclusive system where refugee leadership is recognized. We do this through flexible funding, advocacy, evidence generation, strengthening programs, and partnership building. I was honored to contribute to this issue with Hope Across Borders as a guest editor in collaboration with our partners at Lever for Change. I helped with a piece entitled "The Time Is Now," which was a peer dialogue reflecting on the urgency and the opportunity of resourcing refugee-led change from inside out. So thank you so much and happy to be here.
Thank you, Mohammed. Yeah, we're going to talk about that peer dialogue just a bit later on as well. Thank you. Okay, Nicole, you're next. Dr. Nicole Benham is Vice President for Strategy and Innovation at the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, an organization that describes itself as the only full-time resource dedication to helping donors maximize their impact through expertise, resources, community-driven grant-making, and philanthropic consulting services. Nicole was also the second guest editor of Hope Across Borders, so welcome. Please feel free to share a few words about yourself and your work.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us to be here and also to do the magazine edition. It was actually a joy to work with our partners, and reading the contributions even from the others was just a wonderful, I think, example of exactly what we were trying to show, which is the strength within, Hope Across Borders. So the piece that I wrote was called The Strength Within, and the focus was really about mutual aid. At the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, we really we have an emphasis on supporting mutual aid, local organizations that are helping each other. Mutual aid is exactly what it sounds like. It's neighbors helping neighbors. In this case, it's refugees helping other refugees. And it is such a powerful and transformative and human way actually to do crisis response, that it was just very exciting to be able to highlight that in this whole edition, not just the article that I wrote, but all of the pieces I feel like really emphasize that. So really excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, it was a pleasure for me as editor as well. I worked really in depth on all those pieces, and I'm really excited that we get to revisit them today. Now I'm going to come to you, Ana. Ana Karina Garcia is the president of Juntipode, an independent nonprofit organization founded in Colombia in 2019 by Venezuelan citizens to ease the impact of migration on host communities and support the integration and stability of migrants. Ana, would you like to share a few words about your organization and the work you do?
First, thanks for the invitation and for the opportunity to write in this article. My name is Ana Karina. I am Venezuelan people. I live in Colombia because in this moment I'm a refugee here in this country because the situation in my country. Juntos Se Puede is organization funding for migrants and refugees here in Colombia, and the focus is transformate the form of the system of the ecosystem here for integrate the migrants. We have a model, a holistic model to do like different process for integrate the people for the large place, no the short moment. And that is our work here in Colombia.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for your lovely introductions. Now we're going to get into our question and answer session. And Mohammed, I'm going to come to you first. So my first question to you is, your leadership of the Resourcing Refugee Leadership Initiative has helped challenge traditional models of humanitarian aid. I want to know what inspired you to pursue a refugee-led coalition, and how did your personal background shape that vision?
Thanks a lot for this question. Yeah, the inspiration behind the Resourcing Refugee Leadership Initiative, RLI, really comes from lived experience. As someone who has personally experienced forced displacement, I've seen firsthand how traditional humanitarian aid often sidelines the very people it aims to support. For me, it was never just about filling gaps in aid. It was about challenging a system that needed to evolve. Refugee communities have solutions, leadership, and resilience, yet they are rarely trusted or resourced to lead. That contradiction pushed me to think differently, a little bit differently. So the Resourcing Refugee Leadership Initiative was built on a very simple but transformative idea that people with lived experience should be in charge of their own futures. Our work is not about excluding others, but about building a healthier and more balanced ecosystem where refugee leadership is not the exception, but the norm. It's about movement building, creating a system where those most affected are at the center and where all actors work together in ways that are truly accountable and equitable. My background made it clear to me that true dignity doesn't come from being helped. It comes from having agency. And in today's world where calls for systemic change are growing louder, where conversations around decolonizing aid and shifting power are finally getting momentum, the Resourcing Refugee Leadership Initiative is showing that it's possible to reimagine humanitarian response, not as charity, but as a pathway to more durable and community-driven solutions. So I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. I really think that it's already, we've had a standout quote where dignity comes from having true agency. I think that is wonderful. I wonder if you could just expand a little bit though before we move on to the next question. You're a coalition, you're made up of 6 organizations. Where are those organizations based? Are they all local to your region, or are they more further spread? And what type of work do they do?
Yeah, the coalition is made up of 6 organizations and is housed within Asylum Access, which is a US-based organization. We are present in Africa, in Asia, in South America. Specifically, we are present in Egypt. We are present in Uganda, in Lebanon, in Indonesia, and in Colombia. So these are the 5 countries that we work with currently. The work spans from, like everything I spoke about it, including advocacy, evidence generation, strengthening programs, but also a large part of our work is direct services to the affected communities, to refugee communities, and also to local communities. So
Right.
I can safely say we are all grassroots, but global in the same time.
Great. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about funding. So you, the sort of RRLI, won the Last and Lamb Iconic Impact Award, and that was clearly a turning point for you. So can you tell us a bit more about how that changed your trajectory, and what kind of flexibility did the award allow that typical funding does not?
Yeah, First, I think winning the Larsen Lamb Iconic Impact Award was our beginning. It marked the birth of RRLI as a coalition. And winning this award was truly a central moment for us because of what it represented. It was a recognition that refugee leadership is not an add-on or a side conversation. It is central to creating lasting solutions. The award, as you said, very rightly, gave us something that is quite rare in the traditional funding landscape: flexibility and trust. We weren't locked into rigid project designs or narrow deliverables. Instead, the award allowed our network of RLOs in the 5 countries to do what typical restricted funding rarely makes it possible. First, it gave us the freedom to create truly holistic, community-led responses, addressing real needs as they arise, rather than being forced to focus on just one theme, let's say education or livelihoods. In displacement settings, people's needs are interconnected somehow, and isolating one issue from another simply doesn't reflect reality. Second, the award gave our partners the ability to respond quickly to emergencies, whether it is a sudden crisis or an urgent gap in services, without waiting for new grants or external approvals. And third, it supported RLOs to strengthening their organizational foundations for the long term, investing in staffing, operations, and long-term planning, for example. Typical funding often keeps RLOs locked into survival mode. The award positioned us to push for broader systems change. We are able to invest seriously in advocacy, speaking more boldly about the need to transform funding practices. It gave us the space to build stronger relationships, to generate evidence that captures the real impact of RLOs when given the freedom and resources to lead. The award didn't just fund projects, it helped ignite a movement to reshape how humanitarian aid is led, funded, and imagined.
Amazing, thank you. Just for our attendees who are not in the know, what was the size of the impact award?
It was $10 million.
Fantastic.
And we won that in 2021.
And to be unrestricted as well, how fantastic was that for you guys? Thank you. I want to come back to your point about trust you mentioned just at the beginning. You actually talked about trust quite a lot in your peer dialogue with Lever for Change, which was published in the Hope Across Borders issue. You said that trust is the starting point of an equitable funding system. And I want to know, what does building trust between funders and refugee-led organizations look like in practice?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about trust as the foundation for an equitable funding system, we mean something very practical, not just a feeling, but a change in how relationships are built, in how decisions are made. Building trust starts with recognizing that RLOs are not simply service providers. They are leaders, they are builders, they are long-term planners and partners as well. In practice, trust means funding RLOs directly and flexibly without tying their hands with rigid project frameworks. It means acknowledging their experience and their expertise in defining community priorities. Trust unlocks not just better outcomes, but stronger systems, organizations that are more resilient, communities that are better served, and a humanitarian system or ecosystem that is ultimately fairer and more effective. It's not about lowering standards, right? It's about trusting displaced leaders to set the standards alongside funders as true partners in shaping the future. I think when trust is real, systems change becomes inevitable.
Thank you, Mohammed. You are an excellent speaker. I want to get you a soapbox to stand on. We've got so many standout quotes just from your short responses. Thank you. Nicole, I'm going to come to you next. I want to ask you about something that you touched upon a lot in your lead article in the Hope Across Borders issue. The power imbalance in philanthropy was a recurring theme. And I want to know, how can both donors and local actors work together to shift decision-making closer to affected communities, especially in the displacement context?
Yeah, it's great to follow on Mohammed because he made a lot of the points already. Philanthropy has a unique role to play here. We can be flexible. We can enter in with trust. We can listen. We can give the space that is needed for refugee organizations to lead. And this is about mutual aid. So if you think about who knows a context best, who has the lived experience to bring to the table for solutions that work, it's the people themselves who have gone through displacement, who have experienced the crisis. And that is actually it's a know-how. It's not a transferable knowledge. We talk about local knowledge and how we can bring that into the system, but that's not the same as you lead this because you know this. This is a very different way of entering into partnership. As Mohammed said, it's trust, it's listening. I'm going to share a story because for 30 years, I was in the system, the very system that Mohammed is talking about. But I started out, I'm going to date myself now, but I started out in Mozambique in a rural area. And it was actually a moment when a lot of refugees were returning back after the long civil war. And I lived with a woman from the local culture who's a dear friend of mine. We've stayed in touch for all of those many years in between. I came with all of these wonderful ideas about what could be done for children. It was a child protection program we were working on together. It wasn't a hugely funded program, but it was powerful. And it was powerful because it was led by my friend Sybil, not because I came in with all of these amazing ideas. She had the experience, she understood the culture, she understood the language. That was a uniquely important, transformative, humbling time for me. It was the right way to start my career because I realized I was dependent on her. There was nothing about this context that I brought besides just maybe a few new perspectives or new ideas. It was really about coming in and understanding I'm secondary here. Don't center myself. Don't think that I come with all the solutions. The solutions are here. How can I create space to let those rise up? And that was really a powerful way to start. Philanthropy can do this. Philanthropy can do this in a way that bilateral public funders might not be able to as easily, and we should.
Fantastic, thank you. You've actually set me up perfectly for my next question for you as well. What you're saying is that philanthropy can go where public funders cannot, particularly in providing flexible and long-term support. And I want to know, what examples have you seen of philanthropy stepping up effectively in this space?
Yeah, I mean, Mohammed mentioned the Larson Lamb, the iconic. That was really, I think, a powerful model for a lot of philanthropy to follow. I'm very grateful for that. I also we at the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, we also work hard. We don't have nearly that size of grants that we make, but we work very hard to focus on mutual aid, local organizations. We also go beyond the grant in a lot of the work that we do to sit in partnership, to talk through, problem solve together with our grantee partners. And nobody does this perfectly, but we really try to be faithful. Our mission is focused on long-term equitable recovery. So we have also a mission that allows us to walk alongside, I think, partners for the term of recovery for that length of time, which is an honor. It's actually an honor to be a part of. I've also seen Hilton do a lot of good work. They were the other guest editor that's not here with us today. They've done really, it's again, beyond the grant. There's the money, right? The money is important, but there's also a knowledge shift that we need to make. There is this way of understanding knowledge and expertise that can still privilege the global north. We need to move beyond that. We need to understand actually where the most powerful knowledge is held is with the local organizations, is with refugees themselves. Hilton has worked with APNOR, the Asia Pacific Network for Refugees, to come up with the I hope I get this right, Meaningful Refugee Participation Index, the MRPI, which is a great tool to also assess yourself as a funder to see how are we doing. And what I want to say is, don't wait for perfection. Dive in, do this, fund directly, fund flexibly, try it out. you won't be disappointed.
Great, thank you, Nicole. Also, I think you deserve a soapbox as well, because that was a fantastic closing statement to that question. I wonder though, just before I come to my next question, you mentioned sort of repeatedly about going beyond the grant. Could you give me some like tangible examples of where the Centre for Disaster Philanthropy has done that?
Yeah, I work on strategy and innovation, and my colleagues who do grant making have a lot more examples of this. But we have worked with grantee partners, particularly local, smaller organizations who are on the front lines of this work to problem solve around funding gaps. And that doesn't mean just giving money, but also around who else can we look to? How can we help you redo your budgets so that you can meet your marks, so that you can get to the people that you really want to get to. We've done all kinds of capacity building on preparedness. I should say mutual capacity strengthening is how we often think about it, because we learn as much as we teach when we engage in these. But preparedness is a big part of what we try to do as well, and working with partners on thinking through their preparedness plans. And again, we take some of those learnings and share them with new partners. So going beyond the grant is actually in some ways more fun, because it's one we get to learn as well. And I really do want to emphasize, we talk a lot about money going directly to refugee-led organizations, and that is of primary importance. But it is also this knowledge piece I want to emphasize, that there is knowledge that is non-transferable, that lives, that is absolutely, it's a gold mine of solutions that we have yet to really deeply tap.
Great, thank you. We have actually had one audience member submit a question. Can I just remind the audience, if you have a question for the panel, please submit it in Slido rather than the chat. But however, someone has asked, Nicole, can you name the reflection assessment tool again?
Yes, and I hope I got it right the first time, but now I have it in front of me. It's the Meaningful Refugee Participation Index.
Great,
and it was developed by APNOR and Hilton.
Fantastic, thank you, thank you. Okay, so my final question to you before we move on to Anna. Despite the clear benefits, as you have touched on already, less than 1.2% of humanitarian funding reaches local organisations, and even less to refugee-led organisations. Why do you think these disparities persist despite repeated commitments to localisation from philanthropy?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I'll start with, to be fair, it can be hard to navigate contexts, new contexts, crisis context, to understand who to give to, how to get the money where it needs to go. And I think people can feel intimidated by that. I think funders can feel intimidated by that. Again, this is something that we at CDP, the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, we work to be an intermediary in that, because we do actually have a knowledge as a funder of those contexts. So I think it can be intimidating, but it shouldn't be, because really, it is a joy to give directly. It is transformative to give flexibly. And we also, as philanthropy, can understand that we can be a solution to some of the systemic barriers that Mohammed touched on, that are really, they are not insignificant. They are legal barriers, access to funding, access to the system. There are so many ways that RLOs are actually at a disadvantage to access that funding, particularly, again, public funding. And philanthropy doesn't have to sit in that constrained space in the same way. Now, since we wrote these articles, I will say that there have been some changes. I believe in a both-and system. I believe in a system that brings together bilateral funding, philanthropy, global North expertise with global South expertise, but at a table where we are equal partners, and where we also understand that we may have some knowledge, but honestly, the know-how of refugee-led organizations has to be paramount. In philanthropy, we can do that. I believe that the 1.2% is going to change. I think it's already changing. I think that we are on the right trajectory, but I would love to accelerate it by asking funders to trust, listen, and find joy. Find joy in the giving, in that direct giving, in working with RLOs as partners.
Fantastic, thank you. That was great. I also can see that attendees have started putting questions in Slido. Please do, because we will be coming to the audience Q&A session in just a moment. Before I do though, actually, Nicole, I'm going to invite you to ask a question for Anna, who will be coming to you right now. If you want to kick us off, and then I'll take it away before we jump into the audience Q&A.
Sure. Anna, I'm so honored to be on this panel with you. In your article for Alliance's Hope Across Borders special feature, you mentioned that Juntos Se Puede resists the pressures of the traditional humanitarian aid models and instead builds long-term solutions, which is amazing. Can you tell us more about what this resistance looks like in practice?
Oh, thanks. One of the most important consists in not bidding for the projects. That is difficult because the pressures for the organization to obtain recourse is very highest. But that is one of our form to resist this in the system, no? The second has to do with the fact that our model does not accept to make humanitarian and referral if not we if it not within the framework of a strategy to get a family group of out of the property, no? If we need that, we do it, but in a big plan. It's not only do it for send and the people say and come, I need a humanitarian help, but we transform the thing of the people and we say that if I get you this in this moment, that is not sufficient. The next month you are going to come again and we don't have the form to help you. For that reason, we change that mentality and we talk and we form the people to change that. That is the second. That is not easy, no? That is very difficult, but it's important to start because if we don't start, we don't change never this situation. In the in this, evidently the implies transform the mentality of the people we serve so that understand that humanitarian aid is not a solution to the real problem, no? That is our model and that is our focus to resist in this different system because the Juntos Se Puede Foundation thinks that the humanitarian help is important, but in a big context and a big strategies to change the situation in the next month, not only in the moment we need the help.
Thank you, Anna. That was great. You've sort of lined me up again for my question to you. You're talking about, big strategies, big change, and I wanted to ask you, the term systemic change, I think it is a buzzword in philanthropy, and it is used a lot, but rarely defined with clarity. And I want to know, what does systemic change mean to you in the context of migrant and refugee inclusion?
Well, for us, the system change is to use the model that the teaches the to fish to transform the fish's economies. All the people say, "Oh, don't give the fish, teach to fishing." But for us, it's not only teach to fishing; it's transform the all the ecosystems of this. Because in this moment, the people come to our organization. We teach to finish the eats or something like that, but we use all of this information to then go to the ecosystem and do advocacy and all of this to change the context. For us, that is important because we attended, I don't know, a group of people, but we don't attended all the migrants here in Colombia and in the world. For that reason, we need to change the system all to all the people. But we use the case we attended to to do that change. That is our strategy in that point.
Great, thank you. Do you have any examples of this advocacy work that you do, just to illuminate your point a bit further?
Well, one of these in January, we start advocacy to change the situation of the refugee or the application of refugee here in Colombia, because in that moment, the person applicate to the process of refugee don't have the opportunity to work. They they have 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 4 month, 6 month, and a year in this process. And in this time, the people don't have the opportunity to work. That is not a protection real, because if you don't have money, you don't have the form to have a dignity life, no? And we do a campaign for advocacy, and we have a lot of meets with the government to change that. And we change this in this moment. The resolution start in the Unite One. And for us, that is very, very important, because uh, this new resolution changed the life of the refugee, of applicant refugees in Colombia. That is one of example of our advocacy in Colombia.
Great, thank you. It's brilliant to hear as well. And I think you'll have a lot of insight for my next question as well. Many RLOs continue to struggle for visibility and credibility in the eyes of large donors and governments. You've kind of already touched upon it already, but I want to know more. How do you overcome these challenges, and what system changes is still needed?
Well, that is a very important question. For us, this has to do with the organization created their own model and begin to test them. No, for us, that is the first point. The second one is also to change the way we think about financing and sustainability. Uh, in it's time to do business to raise fund for invest in our social purpose. We know it is not easy, but it's urgent. All the organizations have only think that the cooperation and the philanthropy need to get money to do the models. For us, that in this moment and in this context of the world, it's important change it. And that is the first change we think we need to do. It's not only the others, it's us, it's the organization. We need to change that in our form to financial our organization. And in terms of the ecosystem, we must begin to influence the way in which tender are opened, in which philanthropy is invested, and but also in how is the fund are used. Because in a lot of the moment, the big cooperation use the funds for things in the territories you don't need it. And they do a lot of programs is like to have a big picture and say, oh, it's important the migrant and the refugees. For that reason, we are invest in this, in this, in this. But when you go to the territories, that is not the needs of these refugees. For us, that is very important, and we think in this moment have a big change in the world. It's difficult change, I know, but it's a big, it's a good moment to do this.
Great, thank you. It's really interesting to hear what you're saying about changing internally and reflecting and, vying for your credibility. I wondered, can you share an example of how a direct relationship with a donor enabled your organization to respond swiftly or creatively to a community need?
Well, first we have a good luck because the Conrad Hilton is a partner help us, and is a partner uh, permit us to innovate it and change the process. No, that is very important, because I think in the humanitarian system, or we need to innovate it, we need to do new things, we need to try a different process, because if we don't do this, we are going to have the same result. with the Conrad, we have the opportunity to do this. We innovate. We have the opportunity to say, "Oh, we are going to try this," and that is not a problem. No, with other organization or with other donor, it's very difficult because they have only like a traditional process, and this is the traditional process, and this have a problem for the organization to change process. No, in January, in Venezuela, have a big political persecution, and a lot of people get out of Venezuela to Colombia, and they don't have anything because they only have the thing they have put in the moment of the persecution, and we try to change this or to receive these people here in Colombia, and the Conrad Hilton have us the opportunity to try a support system we embed. And that's in this moment, 6 months or 7 months later, that model have results. And that is very, very important, because if we don't have a donor and say, oh no, well, I have the credibility of Juntos Se Puede, and I'm going to try it, and I'm going to oppose of this model, we don't have the opportunity to try this.
Great. Thank you so much. You know, I want to thank all of my panelists, and I just want to touch on a point that all of you have mentioned in some way, which is localization and trust-based philanthropy. I think that was a recurring theme throughout the special feature as well, and you have really illuminated how important it is within your respective areas of work as well. We are now going to move to the audience Q&A. I can see that someone has already put a question in the chat. Audience members, please feel free. We have a good 15 minutes here for your questions, so don't hesitate. I'm going to start my first question, and I think I'm going to put it to the floor. So I will ask all of you, feel free to respond, just jump in. Michaela says, I love hearing how you can see the strength of funding refugee-led organizations, but what happens when refugees don't want to lead, but want to join in on someone else's movement so they can do other jobs, like be a doctor? Is there still a place to support them? I think, Mohammed, we haven't heard from you for a while, so I'll come to you first. Otherwise, feel free to join in, panelists.
Yeah, I think, you know, if a refugee or a displaced person doesn't want to lead and just want to move on with their lives, I think that's completely fine. I mean, I think we're talking here about RLOs, like refugee-led organizations, and their roles in the system and their roles in the ecosystem, right? Individuals, of course, have the freedom to just, not being involved and choose to move on with their lives. But I think also, like wherever they are still human beings. They are still, in need of rights and everything else. And I think they have they should be helped out wherever they can, right? Through RLOs or through the country where they're resettled, let's say. So I think it's just, yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you, Mohammed. Anna, I think I'm going to come to you next. As part of a refugee organization, do you have a response to this question?
Yes. Well, we have a program to do this, to support that insertion in order to generate new opportunity. But that also goes through if we sensitive and adaptive the system to achieve it. That is important because we have all the voluntary to do this, and we have a program, but we have like gaps in the process, and we work to change this gap to have more opportunities to the refugees. But we think in this moment we have well, in Colombia, I think in the other country in the world is not the same, but we have the law here. We have like all a process with the government to insert the refugees in that jobs he wants to do it because that's his dignity, no?
Thank you, Anna. That's great. Nicole, do you have any thoughts on this question, just while we're waiting for some other audience questions to come through?
Yeah, I think both Anna and Mohammed touched on it, but I think it was Mohammed at the beginning of our conversation said something like, true dignity is having agency. And so what I would say is, let's all of us remember that when, if we are forced to leave our homes and be displaced, we don't leave our whole selves behind. We leave our home behind. And we come, though, with all the talent and experience and background and gifts that we have in ourselves. And so this idea of having agency, if I come and I'm displaced and I'm a doctor and I want to use that, what better way than giving refugee-led organizations space to lead, to create the space in their own communities for that doctor to be a doctor. That is, to me, I think, remembering that it's not like everything gets lost in displacement. It's a human tragedy. It's a human rights violation, but people come with themselves, and that thing of having dignity because of having agency, I think we should keep at the center.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you to all of you. I have another question from the audience, which I'm going to put to Mohammed and Anna. So Josephine says, thanks a lot for this interesting discussion. I was wondering how the almost global rise of the far right has impacted your work and your collaboration with funders. Have you experienced issues because of any political engagement, and how have you dealt with it? Mohammed, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, just sadly, I would say anything is political nowadays. Like politics control everything. We have, of course, find a lot of challenges with political landscape and political decisions. And from my experience, that is the biggest challenge that we have right now. Policies coming out of politics, right? That those challenges comes from the, let's say, the host countries where refugees resides and where RLOs operates. That's a huge thing, right? So there are restrictions in registration, there are restrictions in receiving funds, there are restrictions in even have the right as a refugee to be employed in anywhere, right? So, I mean, from my understanding, that all comes from politics, right? And from political decisions. What we navigate, like we try at our best to navigate the system by, trying to operate within, like in collaboration with an entity that can be registered officially in the country of operation, let's say. We try, like the best way, even in our RLI, I think, is the advocacy, continuous advocacy about this, being present where those decisions are taken as much as possible. I think in spaces like the GRF, where pretty a lot of governments are there and decisions are made there. So we went there, we boldly spoke about those challenges and the need that those policies need to be changed. So all what we can do is just advocating for change, I think, at this stage, and locally navigating as much as possible, and try to just do the work, quite under the radar, if I can say. But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed. Anna, do you have anything to add from your particular experience?
Well, I am very agree with Mohammed. That is the process. For us, in our experience, it's very important use like two hands, no? One's hands to put in the opinion, the problems, and the agents of this organization and of the refugees. And with the other hands, we sit with the government and we talk and we have dialogues to have like propose. We say we need to do the homework and give the homework to the government, and they say, oh well, we do it this. That is a very important strategy for us. But I think that Mohammed says is the context of all the war. It's not only in one country or in another country. It's the same in all of the world.
Thank you. And I think I'll just add something to both of what you've said. From having read and worked on the special feature Hope Across Borders, one thing that comes through time and time again through all the articles is the ability of refugee-led organizations to adapt. I mean, these organizations have dealt with countless threats, challenges, and yet they continue to adapt. So it seems, no matter what the globe world politically has in store, refugee-led organizations are incredibly strong and resilient. So I wanted to add my 2 cents, but thank you to all of you. I can't see any more questions in the audience Q&A. We still have a few minutes, so if anyone has a burning question in their back pocket, then please do jump in. Otherwise, I'm going to ask one more question, and I'm going to put it to all of you. And then, if we don't have any more audience Q&A, I think you can all share your closing remarks. So I would say to all of you, looking forward, what are the biggest opportunities and risks you see for refugee-led organizations globally, and what role should philanthropy play in seizing or mitigating them? Nicole, I will come to you first.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think there is more opportunity in this moment from a funder perspective. And I say that because I feel like there's a certain clarity at the moment about are we committed to helping our neighbors who live in other countries? Are we committed to that? And if so, we can step up. And I say that not as a step up and fill all the gaps. No, I don't mean it that way. I mean that we can move into this next level of evolving the system. And there's a certain clarity in this moment, I think, about this is a time where we can do it and make meaningful change. So while I can see some of the risks, and the previous question pointed out some of those, I do think we're in a moment where our way forward should be clear. And so I will leave it at that. The role of philanthropy should be to trust, to listen, to give of our time, talent, and treasure.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Anna, I'll come to you next. Do you have anything from your perspective that you can add to this question?
Well, this is I say in the last question, this is a difficult moment for a lot of refugees in the world, but that's the difficult moment is opportunity too, no? In the crisis, we have a lot of opportunity because in the crisis is the moment to change the system. In the crisis is the moment to visibility the needed of the refugees. Uh, I know for us, for the person, for individual history, the moment is very difficult. No, that's for me very important to recognize because I know I live it. No, I am a refugee. All of my family in different countries are refugee, and I know it's a difficult moment. But in our roles, in the leadership role, we have the opportunity to put a vision in this discussion in the world, to say the vision of the refugee are this, and it's important in this moment to evolution, to transformate, to change, take that opinion, because the refugees are the most important funds of academic and of experience, have really experience in the territories to do the new cooperation, donation, and philanthropy model. For me, is a moment to act. It's a moment to act and to do things. It's not a moment to have fear for the leadership. It's not a moment to say, I don't going to say anything because I have fear, because I don't have the funds in my organization. No, it's the contrary moment for us.
Thank you, Anna. I think that's also our third standout quote of the webinar so far. In crisis, there is a moment for opportunity. I think that is very well put. Thank you. Mohammed, do you have anything to add to this question?
Yes, I'm just going to emphasize and echo what Dr. Nicole and Anna said. But I think for me, looking ahead, we are at a real crossroads. On one hand, there is a growing global recognition that RLOs must be central. Discussions about localization, shifting power, and supporting community-led responses are louder and more public than before, ever than before, right? Let's say 5 or 10 years ago. And that's a huge opportunity. But the risk is that these conversations don't translate into meaningful change. We still see donors acknowledging the importance of refugee leadership in principle, but in practice, funding continues to flow mainly through large UN agencies and INGOs that are quite disconnected from the realities of the communities they serve. I guess this is why we believe philanthropy is uniquely positioned to lead the change with us. And I'm going again to echo what Dr. Nicole was talking about earlier. I think philanthropic partners have the flexibility to fund differently. They can take risks, they can think longer term, and they can prioritize equity in ways that traditional funding structures cannot. They can resource the infrastructure of the refugee leadership principle. They can create space for advocacy. They can help shift the norms of who gets to lead and who gets to decide. In many ways, philanthropy can be the bridge. And I strongly believe in that, helping dismantle all these barriers that keep RLOs sidelined. Philanthropy can be bold enough to reimagine what a truly equitable humanitarian system looks like. We don't just need more funding for RLOs, as Dr. Nicole was saying. We need a new mindset about who holds expertise, who gets trusted, and whose leadership is valued. If philanthropy moves boldly, we don't just fund new projects, we change the system itself. And a final remark is just the future of humanitarian action isn't about doing more for refugees, it's about doing more with refugees. Thanks a lot.
Mohammed, excellent final remark. I won't ask you to do another one. Thank you all panelists today for your expertise and your insight and for speaking so eloquently. I think this has been an excellent discussion. Before I hand over to Anna and Nicole for their final remarks, I just want to remind all our audience members today that we're offering a 20% discount code to anyone who wants to order a print copy of Alliance magazine, Hope Across Borders. You'll get to read contributions from our lovely panelists, as well as a whole host of other authors. Alliance really is the place for critical insight and debate in philanthropy. We are the sector's critical friend, so please do have a read and enjoy. For now, I'm going to pass to Anna for your closing remark, and then we'll come to Nicole before I say good afternoon or good evening to wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today. Anna, if you'd like to go first.
Well, first, thanks again for this. Thanks again for the opportunity, and thanks for have a space to do critical opinion, because in this world that is difficult in a lot of moments. It's difficult to say critical opinion, and that is very important to the change. If you don't have critical opinion, to do never have changes in the world. And I am convinced that we have the opportunity to change the system in this moment. And the system is not only like a farce, a thing far, is the context we live it. And the refugees in all of the world in very moment have a bad opinion the world of us. And we are the most bad consequence of the bad systems. We don't are a refugee because in our country have a bad system. We don't decided to get out of our country. We don't decided we get out of our family. We don't decided we lost all of in our life. And for that reason, we have the responsibility to say this to the world, to say we are a refugee because the system is broken. We are a refugees because the system don't work. For that reason, we are a leadership to change this and to have to do or building a new system because we don't know, have, we don't want to have more refugees in the world. That is my final message. And thanks again for this. And I am here in Colombia for all what you needed. I am here.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. Nicole, please go ahead.
30 seconds. I'll be very fast. At the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, we have the honor of focusing both on domestic US-based disasters and also funding globally. And what we have seen and what I have the honor to see and what gives me hope across borders is actually that the same human impulse that animates the organizations in Western North Carolina after Helene is the same human, beautiful impulse that animates emergency response rooms in Sudan, that animates how we help each other. And that is why philanthropy should be focusing on refugee-led organizations, because it is that beautiful impulse that you will be giving space and power to.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day wherever you are in the world. Thank you and good evening.